Hello, fiction friends. Wanted to touch base to go over a couple of the announcements that I made yesterday in my email to you all. We are, as you are probably aware, rapidly approaching spring break. Oh my God. It's great for you guys. I'll be grading papers, but I hope you guys do something awesome and fun. Um, but because of this fact, I wanted to highlight a couple of important dates for you all so that you're clear on what's coming down the pipe in the near future and so that you have time to both prepare and also ask any questions should you have them as we get closer to these assignment due dates. So firstly, right before spring break is um, when I'm typically in touch with each student to review your discussion post responses, provide you with some feedback on how you're doing so far. We can go over any absences that I've logged, um, just so that you know exactly how many forums you've missed. As you all know, according to your syllabus, you're allowed 3 absences or 3 missed forums without penalization. This is like essentially like missing 3 classes throughout the course of the semester. After that, you're going to start losing points off of your final course grade for every forum that you've missed. So that's another opportunity for me to review with you um, any forums that I have down that you've missed so that you're clear on the number of absences that you have going forward for the rest of the semester. Typically, I've done some teleconferences or I've sent emails in the past providing this feedback. This semester, I'm going to be on campus, or I can be on campus a couple of days in early March, right before spring break. If you are a student who is on campus, I would go. I typically have done office hours on College Ave campus at Panera. We have coffee. It's chill. Anyone who's had me as a teacher in the past before uh, can vouch that it is a friendly, um, comfortable, productive time to meet in person. So, if you are the type of student who would benefit from some in person conversation, get some feedback, we can also review your ideas for your midterm papers, review your thesis statements. This is a great time for us to just sort of sit down, touch base, so that you know sort of where you stand in the class, you know what you need to work on going forward in order to maximize your grade, and you get some good pointed feedback on your midterm paper as you're starting to prep them. I'll be posting midterm prompts within the next week, probably even sooner than that. So you'll have time to kind of look through them in advance. But if you would like to meet in person, the dates that I could be on campus will be Tuesday, March 5th, Thursday, March 7th, and then Monday, March 11th. If you would like to meet, and I'll probably be there between like 10:30 a.m. to like 2 p.m. I have to drop my kids off at school, pick them back up. So this is sort of like the blocked window that I have. But if you would like to meet on campus, can meet on campus, one of those days you are not required to do this. I'm just giving you the opportunity to sit down with me in person if that works better for you. Email me which day and which time works for you, and then I will try to schedule you accordingly to give you that opportunity. If you're not on campus, if you work, whatever, that's fine. If you want a teleconference instead, um, also email me and let me know on those days, good day and time, so that I can schedule you in. Um, and if I don't hear from you, then I'm just going to send you a good old fashioned email giving you all of this sort of specific feedback on your work thus far. Okay? So, March 5th, March 7th, March 11th, if you want to meet in person, email me as soon as possible. Let me know a day and time so I can schedule you. If you want a teleconference, also let me know that so we can set that up. And otherwise, if I do not hear from you, if mum's the word, I'm going to shoot you an email the week before spring break so you have that specific feedback. The week of March 11th is going to be a writing week for us. This is a week off from reading any new materials, but this is not a week off from working. This is designed to give you the opportunity to actually start to formulate and draft your ideas for your midterm paper. We will be having a discussion forum, but instead of reading new material and posting on that, you will all be posting your thesis statements for your midterm paper. The point of this is to help you to really formulate a specific analytical and comparative thesis statement. The thesis statement is really the anchor for your paper. So if you have a weak or an unclear thesis statement, then your paper is going to flounder. So it's important to take the time to actually start to formalize your ideas and present them in a really kind of clear and succinct way. I will be commenting specifically on your thesis statements and providing you with some feedback. And then as a group, you're all going to be required to also provide feedback on one or two of your fellow classmates' thesis statements. This is a good task for you all as well, because it will help train your eye to evaluate what constitutes, a solid, productive, truly analytical and original thesis statement. And I'll be going over thesis statements in a little bit more detail as we get closer to the midterm due dates, probably early March. I will talk more about the difference between an observational thesis statement and an analytical one, and you want the latter. So we will be, during the week of March 11th to the 15th, that will be your writing week. We will be having a discussion forum. It will be essentially a thesis workshop. You'll be posting your thesis statements. By Wednesday of that week, I will be providing you with specific feedback on your thesis statements. And as a group, you'll be expected to comment and provide feedback on 1 to 2 of your classmates' thesis statements as well. Okay, so that's that week. Your midterm papers, another important due date, are going to be due on Friday, March 15th by 5 p.m. You will upload your paper under the assignments tab. I'm going to, when I post your midterm prompts, open a link under the assignments tab so that you can upload your papers accordingly. Okay, if you have any questions about any of that, then of course just be in touch at any time. Right now we are in the midst of our Kate Chopin discussion forum. We just finished, obviously, Guy de Maupassant's The Necklace. You guys are tough on Mathilde, man. Whew. Not that she doesn't deserve it, but you guys were definitely a little bit rough on her. I can understand, though. She's not a likable character, it's true. But right now we're reading The Story of an Hour and Desiree's Baby. You have some lecture notes to review. I also posted under the lessons tab a cool reenactment of The Story of an Hour, so take a peek at that when you can. It's right under the actual lecture. A couple of important things to just keep in mind when we're reading these two particular short stories. The time period is important. Chopin is writing around the same time as Maupassant was. He was in France. She is obviously in the United States, in Missouri. So the time period is like, mid to late 19th century. So the backdrop of the abolitionist movement is happening, where African Americans were championing for equal rights, for the right to vote. The suffragist movement is also going on at this time, where women were championing for equal rights and the right to vote. So this is sort of, and she's writing during the time of, partly during the time of the Civil War. She has a kind of an interesting background too. Her father dies in a train accident when she's 5. Hello, Brentley Mallard, realist fiction. So she's raised essentially by her mother, her aunts, all of whom are widowed or strong, independent women. Chopin herself had 7 children, I believe. She ran her husband's plantation when he ends up dying early from malaria. So she's a strong, independent woman, particularly for her time, writing about issues such as the sort of social trappings and emotional trappings of marriage for women at the time, which ultimately kind of makes her a bit of like a social outcast, because these themes are pretty provocative for this particular time period. And of course, she is really a contemporary of Maupassant and is very influenced by him. And we know from our notes earlier in the week that Maupassant is considered, a realist fiction writer, meaning he is more interested in presenting certain facts or certain truths rather than these sort of elaborate tales of adventure. He's much more interested in taking a kind of cross section of someone's life, highlighting what would seemingly be sort of mundane, unimportant moments throughout the course of someone's life, and kind of putting a microscope to it to see how things transpire from these seemingly boring or inconsequential moments. And Chopin is really influenced by this line of thinking. She says of him, and I have it in the lecture notes, but she says of him, I read his stories and marvel at them. Here was life, not fiction. For where were the plots, the old-fashioned mechanism and stage trappings that in a vague, unthinking way I had fancied were essential to the art of story making? So, she talks about how, what was important for Maupassant was not the offering the reader some intense interior psychological insight into the characters. As we saw in the necklace, the characters are just sort of presented. We don't know why Mathilde is so interested in superficial things, or why she has such a taste for materialism. We don't get any sort of background on her that would help situate her in that way for us. So she's easy to loathe. We're like, what a bait. Like, this chick is clearly thinking that she is better than she actually is. So it's easy to judge her because we don't have any additional sort of context. We don't know sort of where this desire is coming from. We just know that she has it, and we just know how it influences her, and more importantly, her husband's life. That is sort of the information that we have. Chopin takes a cue from that and also develops characters who we don't get a ton of context for. We don't know very much about their backgrounds, very, very little, in fact, in both short stories. We also have, of course, very importantly, these ironic endings in all three. In The Necklace, Desiree's Baby, and The Story of an Hour, we get these dramatic, ironic endings where you have to and by irony, I mean when something is set up to appear one way and it actually appears, and it actually ends up being a completely different way, typically an opposite way. So we have these kind of like moments at the end of all of these stories that make us sort of want to go back to the beginning and reread like little detectives for the clues that they've sort of dropped in like breadcrumbs, leading us down this path to these kind of really intense, punch you in the face endings. And part of the reasoning for this is because both of these authors are just trying to give us this sort of unadorned snapshots of these characters' lives, these moments in these characters' lives. That is sort of their goal above anything else. So that's sort of something that's really important to keep in mind too, that I want to highlight, this idea of dramatic irony functioning in Chopin's short stories, and also functioning, of course, in Maupassant's The Necklace, as we've already discussed. Okay, that's all for now. Read, read, read. Post, post, post. Our current discussion forum closes Sunday at 10 p.m. We are already posting, so get on it if you have not contributed yet. Okay, onward. Be in touch with any questions. Bye.